Let me find the issue. Do you have it handy, Sean?
It's in the Tamland project. So there we
There's
go.
not.
Yep.
There shouldn't be too many issues there.
I put it in the doc.
Ah. So yeah, what we're talking about in the longer thread there is moving some stuff around. So the only thing that's still left on from the pipeline on ops is loading data from Thanos. In the discussion, we ended up like keeping the entire page generation there because that also pushes to push gateway. That triggers the issues in the capacity planning projects on gitlab.com. So in the end, we'd have a scheduled pipeline that starts on gitlab.com, triggers the pages, timeline pages generation on ops. That job pushes to the push gateway. And then it will call back into a new pipeline on gitlab.com with information to publish the pages, like on gitlab.com, and to update images on the capacity planning issues that have been created from its run. That was the gist of it, wasn't it, Sean? Missing something?
Yeah, so it's kind of, it's confusing how it works. But like, how big of a problem is it that it's confusing how it works, I guess, is our question.
I was just going to ask if we're looking at optimizing something specific or just making it more straightforward.
We're going to make it more robust because now we've got a scheduled pipeline on ops and a scheduled pipeline on gitlab.com that counts on we've got the scheduled pipeline on ops, and then that triggers a pipeline on gitlab.com that requires the last pipeline on the main branch to be, well, not anymore. I think I fixed that, but it finds the last artifact, so it doesn't have pipeline information from the pipeline on ops, and then it just finds the latest artifact for the generate pages doc, gets that and publish it. And at the same time, we also have a job on gitlab.com in the scalability repository that counts on the previous job on gitlab.com in the Tamland project to have finished and have published the images. That's right, isn't it, Sean?
Yeah, so, well, I mean, that doesn't really matter too much because it just says like, if I can find images, I will put them in the issues. So that job is just going through the issues. So let me take a step back. So we submit an MR to gitlab.com. That triggers a pipeline on gitlab.com, but then we'll also trigger a pipeline on ops because two pipelines on ops.
Two pipelines on ops. I don't know why, but it's because of the standards that we've included.
Oh, yeah, because some of them only run on push, not on MR.
Something like that.
Yeah. So that's because jobs that require Thanos data can only run on ops. So we run that on ops. Then when we merge the MR, we run a pipeline on gitlab.com that doesn't really do a great deal. We run a pipeline on ops that will, again, use Thanos. Then on ops, we have the scheduled pipelines that populate data and build the pages. And when the pages build one is finished, that triggers a pipeline on gitlab.com, but also pushes metrics to the push gateway. When the metrics are pushed to the push gateway, that can trigger alerts through Alert Manager. Those alerts then go into the GitLab issue management feature. Alert management feature that then auto creates an incident which goes on the board in capacity planning projects. So that's the part where like we're dog fooding something, and like I think it's valuable to dog food it. had some good discussions with the monitor team around this, but I'm not sure that alerts is the right way to manage, like just Prometheus alerts, like that's the part I'm concerned with mainly, is the right way to manage creating these issues, because we did have issues with the alerts going away when we limited the number of resources we reported on. So if something wasn't in the top 50, was in the top 15, it would show up in Prometheus. Then if it dropped out of the top 15 but was still a problem, the alert would go away. And then if it went back into the top 15, we get a new alert with a new start date and therefore a new issue. We also get a new alert anytime we change the underlying queries that we're using. So recently we changed from an outer average to an outer max for Gitlab. So for Gitlab total disk space, we were doing average across, not across Gitlab nodes, but across, as it turned out, Canary and main. But Canary's disk usage is much, much lower than main's. So the effect of that was to say our disk usage on Gitlab is like way below the target, when actually on Canary, it's incredibly below the target, and on main, it's above the target. It has been for ages. So anytime we change that, the alert will change, because the alert will get a new, it will be, oh no, actually, sorry, that doesn't change the alert, does it, Bob?
The query wouldn't.
The query doesn't change the alert, because that doesn't get pushed into the gateway. But if we change the things that we're aggregating on in the alert itself, that will create a new alert. And what was the other thing that would create a new alert? Oh, if we changed, no, we fixed, before we had one where it would come up each time there was a new page. But basically what I'm saying is, like, we can't fix these retroactively. Every time you find something that will create a new set of alerts, the existing issues are still there with all the discussion, and then we will get new issues created for things that we already know about. So we've been looking into like automatically managing the duplicate issues, but Bob's kind of convinced me that it might be simpler to just say Tamland itself creates the issues. Yeah. Like Tamland itself can say like, is there an issue for this component? Yeah.
So just keep Prometheus alerting entirely and just have, okay.
Yes, so there's a question about whether we would still push to Prometheus to be able to easily see the history of the forecasts. But I don't know if we really need that.
Do we need to see the history of the forecasts if it is recorded in the issue?
So if we don't push to Prometheus, we can do everything except populating the cache on ops. Is that right, Bob?
If we don't...
sorry, on gitlab.com. The only thing we need to do on ops is populating the cache.
Yes. If we remove the push gateway dependency, then we can generate the pages on gitlab.com is what we're saying.
Yeah, so the entire pipeline can be on gitlab.com, and then we just have a scheduled pipeline,
the
on
daily
ops
pipeline that we currently run.
Yeah. And then the gitlab.com jobs will just use that cache.
That certainly sounds like
yeah, so I think the biggest issue, like the pipeline complexity thing is mainly an issue for me and Bob.
But now that we know how it works, we know where to look and so on, that'll be fine as long as nobody else needs to pick it up.
and as long as we keep remembering how it works. What was the other thing I was going to say there, though? The
duplicate issues.
Yeah, the duplicate issues I think are an issue for everybody who works on this, because like it's really confusing and like it does take a reasonable amount of work, and also it kind of spams the channel. You get a new issue created. This was one other thing I meant to mention about the alert manager. Yesterday, an issue got created for, yesterday some issues got created for different components. So if you go to for capacity planning, there was an issue created for Petroni registry, B-tree bloat saturation. I don't know why that triggered yesterday. It has a start time of the 14th of September, but we only got the alert through yesterday. And I don't know why.
Did we see the request from Alert Manager to GitLab.com triggering that?
Let me
I
share
don't know
and
if
then
we need
can-
to look that up right now on the call, but it's just.
Well, no, it might be worth just stepping through. So we got this issue created. So this issue was created. Oh, in fact, this was created 13 minutes ago. But the alert start time was a month ago. So what happened? So let's go to the alert, activity feeds. So we logged the alert from 14 minutes ago. Yeah. So apparently we got this alert from Prometheus 14 minutes ago. And then if I do, wait, it's Petroni registry, right? Yeah, Petroni registry. So equals Petroni registry components. Oops. I find this autocomplete almost works the way I want it to. So what was it? BG float. Yeah. So if we look at the graph and we go back a while.
Why is there were more than one series?
There's the confidence types and the
okay.
Thresholds. So there's confidence type 80% and confidence type mean, and threshold hard and threshold 100%. So if we go back here, did one of these series show up on 14th of September? Not as far as I can see.
They were already there.
Yeah, so I've got no idea why this was created at this point. Like, and I'm pretty sure it's a duplicate.
No, I'm sure.
If I go back to class. Yeah, so what was it? PGB tree float.
39 is the duplicate. Oh, there we go.
Yeah, so it's a duplicate. We've got no idea why it was just created. Debugging that, like, okay, it's actually not a GitLab application bug. Is it a problem with Alert Manager? Did we silence that alert?
But there's just so many questions to ask with having it created there. So,
there's too many things in the middle is basically what I'm saying. Is like trying to figure out like which part was the problem is quite tricky. So we in the past we have been able to debug these, but then we just come across more confusing ones because we've solved the ones that we know how to debug.
Yeah, the easy ones we fixed, and now are the hard ones.
Yeah. And it's like, if we fix the easy ones and then this didn't happen, that would be fine. But like we fix the easy ones and then we get these ones and we're like, how much time are we going to spend like debugging this?
That's why I think there's a lot of value in making it simpler. I think that we really want to bring the rest of the team in to be helping with this, but we're going to land up explaining to everyone how to debug these problems repeatedly, but for each person that joins. And then if they're not part of the rotation for a quarter, then you have to sort of re-explain it or write it down again as to how to debug these things. So I definitely think if we can find what you suggested there in terms of making it simpler, I think it's very much worthwhile.
Okay.
So we need to add issue creation. Like that's one step that we've excluded for now that we would add to the plan is create issues from Timeland instead of going through Alert Manager.
And then if we add issue creation, we can delete that job in the scalability project because we can just add we can put whatever we want in the issue, right? Like we can add the image, we can include the dates, we can include the direct links to the dashboards.
The dates would also be handy because that's what I'm currently keeping. Like, yeah.
Well, yeah, because I think I mentioned in a comment yesterday, the other thing we could do is we could have the issue, because the issue creator will need to look up existing issues, right? So it doesn't create duplicates. So if it finds an existing issue,
can just
update the forecast violation date has come forward. No, can't use forward and backwards for time, can you? If the forecast violation date is closer than it was before, we can bring the due date in or post a comment or something saying like, hey, this is now forecasting violation at this date. If it goes further away, we can also post a comment saying like, this is less of an issue. And if there's no forecast violation date anymore, we can just close the issue.
Yeah, and then that's a part of like the manual job that we're doing now, like looking at the graph, hey, there's no more violation, or the thing that you're solving right now is like this thing disappeared from the page, meaning it's not in the top 15 anymore. So I'll just close it because it'll come back when it is in the top 15 again. So all of that
Mhm.
would be resolved, could be
Sounds
resolved.
like that would be a big help.
Yeah, so basically, we thought
We thought we'd keep the
We
alert
thought-
manager thing, but talking it through now, we've changed our mind, I think.
well, no, I think you convinced me the other day, Bob. It just took me a while to realize that you convinced me. So yeah, because we've just got too many things that we need to look at to figure out why an alert got created. And if we just look at Tamland itself, then that's easier. And then we just have pages, sites, issues.
Who is volunteering to create the issue to make issues?
I already did yesterday.
Ahead of the game. Thank you.
Well, I didn't create the issues yet. I volunteered myself yesterday. I haven't gotten around to it.
Are you happy for us to just start working on that, Rachel? Or do you want us to make it a project and then schedule it when we've got space?
It feels like this takes up people's time at the moment. So I think it's important to make these changes and get started with it, because every week that we delay is another week of having to go through this process of trying to figure out why we're getting alerts or not getting alerts. Or so I'm not like, is this big enough to be a project?
I think, yes.
I mean, yeah. I mean, yeah, because like I guess if we just scoped it to creating the issues in Tamland, we could do that from ops with the appropriate token, but then we'd still have the confusing pipelines.
I think let's create the epic, raise the issues, but I think if either of you have space to start that, let's start it as soon as we can. I think it's just going to save time and effort in the long run. And if we delay and we wait, we're just going to get frustrated with the fact that we know how to fix this and we aren't scheduling it for work.
Okay, thank you. So I guess, Bob, if you
I'll get
already
to that.
volunteered to create the issue, you can also create the epic.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah. Should I create the issues in the Tamland project, like, because the other ones are there? Can still be, since that it's under GL infra, so
Because we can still link it to the epic, because the epic needs to be in GL infra so that it'll show up on our in our stuff. Yeah, that's fine. Cool. Is there anything else we should chat about today?
I can share about the Redis cluster POCs, like
Cool. Okay.
the initial exploration. I don't really call it POC, but it's more like I took a short stab at it on Tanker to do a Kubernetes deployment. I think partly because you could actually do a full deployment on Minikube locally. Yeah, compared to, I think VM based is a lot harder for at least the back engineers, because we don't have that much access. And I think there's a lot more provisioning required to actually do a local run. But yeah, let me link it. Yeah, so the issue links to other issues and draft MRs. It links to a secondary issue where I started on Omnibus GitLab to get it cluster compatible. Then like I added instructions on how to run it locally in a multipass VM. Like you could run a full like 6 to 7 node cluster in a multipass VM, and then connect to it using GitLab -Rails console. Yeah, and then you could just keep writing it via the GitLab Redis cache module, and you can just go. You can actually go into each like master and see where the keys go. Yeah, and yeah, so that's like local setup. But I think I'll probably need help or to pair with an SRE if we were to do this further down the line. Yeah, then I'm probably gonna chill on this a little bit because I'm not sure what's the prioritization for this. So any more effort from now probably needs extra arms. So like yeah, I'll just let Rachel and Liam decide on like the prioritization. But I think I saw like
Related to prioritization, Redis cache has just shown up on the capacity planning reports for primary CPU. So
For when?
December somewhere. 80% confidence. So like that's like not
Fairly.
super urgent, but like.
Well, in terms of prioritization for the Redis cluster work, like we need to get the Redis rate limiting and Redis registry ones into production. I think they're both on staging now. And I think the readiness review has already had a round of feedback for the registry one. And some of those items might be relevant for the rate limiting instance as well. And then the plan was to then crack on with Redis cluster. The question is just about proceeding on, as I wrote on the issue, proceeding on VMs, because I think it was less risky and there's more visibility into what's going on there while we're still figuring out what Redis cluster is and does. Before that, Matt's got availability to help with that as well. So it's just a case of balancing that with getting the instances into Kubernetes. As soon as there's space, then Redis cluster is the next thing we should be picking up.
Didn't you try out the chart, the Bitnami chart for Redis cluster now?
Yeah, I tried the Bitnami charts. It comes with a like post deployment hook job that runs to help add nodes, but it's not that clean when you do scaling down. But then again, I don't think we would scale down much. We only scale up. I would guess we mostly scale up and then we keep it and we rotate to do sort of like maintenance. But scaling down, I'm not sure practically like do we do that much. But if we do, then I think VMs might be neater. Like there's more control. I've discussed this with Bob on our coffee chat. Like VMs give us way more control and more confidence in doing something that we are doing for the first time. Because I guess the team in general don't have that much experience with Redis cluster compared to Sentinel. So I think we will probably roll out more confidently on VMs. Yeah. I think Bob mentioned something about like we have to sort of prepare for CPU spikes when we do rebalancing, when we add in a new node, or even resharding or rebalancing. So for that, that might be something that is hard to project, at least without proper load test. I contemplated doing a load test in VM, but I don't think that's actually going to be any accurate. Yeah. Because
we need to. I don't know what the rebalancing process looks like, and if it's a CPU heavy thing, and we try to do that on an already busy cluster, then it's something that we should figure out. And let's see. I thought it was easier to do on VMs.
Yeah, it just might be that doing that on VMs, we'll be able to understand more easily what's happening if something happens that we're not expecting.
Yeah.
I think a lot of these questions will be easier to answer once we actually have Redis instances in production with traffic in Kubernetes.
Yeah, I mean, that was the plan all along, like the choosing two of the simpler instances to get those into Kubernetes so we could just understand what this is, like how this works, what is required to make this work, what can you see when you have one. Like there were so many questions that we had at the start of this all. And I think that getting these two instances in answers some of those questions. And it might answer enough of the questions that we do Redis cluster in Kubernetes straight away. But I think the consensus when we last talked about it was at least starting with VMs, having the visibility would be a massive help for all of the pieces that we don't know.
One extra thing there is that probably we'll need to do some kind of not a migration, but turn the existing instances we have, so persistent in the cache, into instances in Redis cluster, capital C. So that's going to be easier to do with if it's not a mixed deployment as well.
Yeah.
I think. I have no idea.
We'll only know when we try.
Oh, I noticed in the GitLab application, there's like a Redis cluster validator that is already there, even though we're not using Redis cluster. Like, is there a history behind that?
Yes, Sean built that because we wanted to do Redis cluster at some point, but then we said it's not that urgent, but let's just make sure that nobody else adds new things that aren't compatible.
Okay, got it.
Do we know if any large or medium customer is using Redis cluster in their setup? Does anyone know? I mean, if that were the case, that will give us even more confidence. But I'm guessing the answer is probably no.
Yeah, I don't think our reference architecture covers Redis cluster unless the customers go ahead and try it out themselves.
I think the reference architectures only go up to a certain size. Like I can't also, if the reference like if it's something that we're recommending, it's something that we would have tried and understood and tested. Like I can't remember seeing anything around Redis cluster in those.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I sort of gone into Omnibus to like hack it. Like I sort of not hack, but like add in. I'm updated the config so that the application can use Redis cluster. So I think for the customers to do that, they have to modify Omnibus.
Yeah, so that makes it even less likely. So just to be clear, so the application itself is capable of working with Redis cluster, but Omnibus isn't. Like if you're using a bare installation, you can configure it, but not through Omnibus. Is that the current status?
Yeah, like the Redis.cache or Redis.queue YAML needs a key called cluster with like a list of all the cluster address for it to for the gem to use cluster mode. Yeah, so we don't do that right now.
Got it.
Yeah, so that's all for me in terms of the Redis cluster. I think to like expand more, like create more issues as to like criteria to accept like whether we go Kubernetes or VM. I think we probably need to prioritize it, then wait on the two existing Kubernetes Redis endeavors. Yeah.
Yeah, I think having a proof of concept in the VM environment, in a VM setup is useful, and hopefully by then we'll have at least one of the instances ready on production.
Sylvester, for all of your tests, have you looked at GitLab Sandbox, where you can have your own GCP project to do stuff on VMs, do stuff on the GKE cluster, and so on? I've played with some of the Tanka stuff there, and that was easier than using Minikube locally.
Oh, okay. That's okay. Then I might try that out to like have something there so I can run practical, like a bit more realistic load tests. I could even check out like how bad will resharding take from like a three shard cluster to a 4 shard cluster, things like that. At least some estimates so that we don't get caught off guard.
Do you have a link to the GitLab Sandbox thing? Yeah.
Is that the one? I tried it before, and it's quite simple to spin up a project, and I had my VM also last time.
Nice.
Oh, is there anything else we want to chat about? Anything else we want to go over today? Oh, well, thank you so much for taking us through those things. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.